Bon dia a tothom. Gràcies per unir-vos a aquesta taula rodona, al quart dia de congrés. Ha estat un congrés molt intens. Vam començar amb moltes dificultats tècniques. Una mica al preu de l'ambició, com el títol diu. El vam pagar potser el primer dia, però després ha valgut molt la pena. És un congrés que ens ha sacsejat, que una mica la intenció, penso, era realment fer-nos replantejar moltes coses amb tot el tema de les dades, d'edificació, totes aquestes coses que hem estat parlant. I bé, jo crec que ha estat un resum. Hem vist també que no és un tema impossible. Per exemple, hem vist que es poden fer experiències. El Tim Sherrod ens va presentar unes experiències magnífiques que es poden fer amb dades i tot el que com es pot treballar directament amb elles i no hem de tenir por. I crec que va ser un resum interessant ahir la ponència de la Laura Miller, que realment ens cridava a sortir de la nostra zona de confort. I no és que puguem fer alguna cosa, és que hem de fer-la. I estem obligats a fer-la si volem preservar l'evidència en aquest nou món on les dades són prevalents. Bé, com no podia ser menys, pel darrer dia de conferència tenim una taula rodona molt potent i estic molt agraït a l'organització, a la Junta de l'Associació per permetre'm fer la moderació d'aquesta taula rodona. Però, de fet, els que estem molt agraïts són els companys professionals que s'han afegit, i és gràcies a les connexions professionals de l'Associació d'Arxivers i del Fòrum d'Associacions Professionals. No sé si ho sabeu, però de fet hi ha hagut un canvi recentment al Consell Internacional d'Arxius i les associacions professionals, que era una secció, diguéssim que han pujat de nivell i ara són un fòrum i es reconeix realment el seu paper i la seva importància i estan a un nivell parell amb els arxius nacionals. Bé, com l'important és presentar els companys i que els sentiu a ells, tenim una sèrie de preguntes, però després ens podem desviar. Començo a presentar-los. Tenim per un costat, i li agraïm especialment perquè són les 5 del matí a Montevideo, la Stella Infante, que és la cap d'unitat d'investigació i patrimoni documental a l'Administració Nacional de Ports de l'Uruguai. És també la presidenta de l'Associació Uruguaya d'Arxivólogos i representa aquesta associació al Fòrum d'Associacions Professionals i és professora adjunta del Departament de Tractament i Transferència de la Informació a la Facultat d'Informació i Comunicació de la Universitat de la República amb un màster en Gestió Documental, Transparència i Accés a la Informació. Moltes gràcies, Stella. Tenim també Cassie Findlay, que és un plaer que estigui amb nosaltres. És una professional del món de la gestió documental, els arxius i la privacitat, amb una extensa experiència, ha treballat al govern i al sector privat, a Austràlia i Estats Units. És ni més ni menys que l'autora principal de l'estàndard internacional en Records Management, que suposo que a tots us sona, la ISO 15489, i ha contribuït recentment un capítol sobre Digital Record Keeping, gestió de documents digitals, a la darrera edició del llibre gairebé canònic per nosaltres de la Australian Society of Archivists, Keeping Archives, i representa aquesta associació al Fòrum d'Associacions Professionals. Tenim també a Boface Oudlamo, que se'ns uneix des de Kènia. Té un màster en gestió de documents i arxius de la Universitat de Moi, un Bachelor of Science Degree en Ciències de la Informació i un diploma en Estudis d'Informació de la Universitat Tècnica de Kènia. És el gestor documental de la unitat de registre de serveis del govern de Kènia i, a més, té altres experiències com arxiver de la universitari amb la United States International University, cap d'arxius a Africa 24 Media Limited i bibliotecari a Nation Media Group Limited Broadcasting Division. És membre de l'associació del Fòrum d'Associacions Professionals, el Consell Internacional d'Arxius. És també membre del comitè executiu de l'Associació de Kènia de Records Managers i Arxius, que, això no m'estic de dir-ho, té probablement el nom més cool que mai he vist en una associació d'arxius, perquè es diuen CARMA, Kenyan Association of Records Managers and Archivists. I treballa amb la gent que està començant en arxius i records management, i entre altres responsabilitats. Tenim també amb nosaltres el doctor Lavi Shay, que és director de la Biblioteca i Arxius a l'Institut, a veure si ho dic bé, Yad Yishak Ben Tzvi, espero no haver-ho, que és un institut especialitzat universitari per l'estudi de comunitats jueves a l'est. Té un doctorat de la Universitat Hebrea de Jerusalem al camp de geografia sobre fotografia i geografia cultural de Jerusalem. És el vicepresident de l'Associació Israeliana d'Arxius i Informació i s'encarrega també del comitè de formació professional, a banda de donar classes de mitjans de comunicació i informació al College David Yellin. I last but not least, tenim a Bert de Vries, que és ni més ni menys que el director dels arxius de la ciutat d'Amsterdam. Ell va estudiar història, com molts de nosaltres, en el seu cas a la Universitat d'Amsterdam, i després Business Administration a la Universitat de La Haia. És també arxiver des de fa molt de temps, des de 1987, i des de 2018 és el president de l'Associació Reial d'Arxivers Holandesos i membre del Fòrum d'Associacions Professionals. Moltes gràcies a tots per la vostra presència. I sense més, anem amb les preguntes. Tenim una estructura, però ens podem sortir i podem... Aquí aniré canviant entre castellà i anglès i una mica com ens porti la conversació. I empiezo con Stella, dado que abusamos de todos, pero de ti hemos abusado especialmente hoy con el tema de las 5 de la mañana. Y te agradecemos mucho que estés conectada, como al resto. La primera pregunta se refiere al enfoque que había hasta ahora en gestión documental y si piensas que este enfoque es útil en este nuevo ambiente donde se habla tanto de los datos, de la datificación, de la prevalencia de los datos. ¿Qué opinas al respecto?
Bueno, buenos días. Primero que nada quisiera agradecer la invitación y es un gusto estar aquí, no importa a las 5 de la mañana, no importa el horario. Lo lindo es poder compartir esta instancia en esta ocasión con los compañeros del Foro de Asociaciones Profesionales y muy agradecida entonces por esta oportunidad. Respecto a esta primera pregunta, bueno, entiendo que como otros cambios que se vienen dando en las últimas décadas y específicamente hablando de los cambios en la gestión de producción de información y de documentos mediante procesos que sean masificados, que son universales en entornos informáticos, sin duda que han generado cambios de paradigmas y han promovido el acompasamiento de esos cambios desde la teoría archivística, ¿no? No solo, pero en este caso que nos referimos a ello. Y ello también ha acarreado una necesidad de que el profesional archivólogo acompase esos cambios, ¿no? Como profesionales de la información, sin duda, debemos acompañar estos nuevos paradigmas, estos nuevos escenarios profesionales que requieren nuevos tratamientos, nuevos retos, y oportunidades también para nosotros como profesionales. Tengamos presente que el rol del propio archivero ha cambiado y ha evolucionado mucho en los últimos tiempos. Ya no somos ese ratón de escritorio como se nos veía anteriormente, ¿no? En un espacio polvoriento o encerrados ahí en nuestra gestión diaria, y al que se recurría únicamente para consultar alguna información, sino que ahora tenemos un rol mucho más activo, proactivo. Hemos salido de detrás de ese escritorio y estamos presentes desde el diseño de los procesos y los trámites, ¿sí? Pues se ha comprendido también la necesidad de la gestión documental desde esa etapa cero del documento. Y eso sin duda ha generado nuevos enfoques en la gestión documental y por ende en una actualización constante en nuestra formación para poder estar al día con esos cambios. Ahora con la datificación se presentan nuevamente más desafíos, sobre todo pensando en estos volúmenes impresionantes de información que se manejan y de datos, que de alguna forma sobrepasan el poder de tratamiento que tenemos los pequeños equipos técnicos que trabajamos en los archivos, pero justamente para ello creo que es necesario plantearse estas actualizaciones y estas nuevas formas de trabajo y nuevas herramientas que van surgiendo con estos nuevos procesos y formas de trabajo, y que las instituciones así lo demandan, ¿no? Recién mencionabas, Gustavo, que no tenemos que tener miedo a estos nuevos cambios, a estas nuevas corrientes, si se quiere, y bueno, creo que por ahí viene un poco esta nueva forma de gestionar la información y la necesidad de estar actualizados, y creo que instancias como estas de poder compartir y poder dialogar con colegas de otros países son fundamentales también para ello, ¿no?
Muy bien. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias, Stella. Let's go with Cassie. Same question. Do you think that the focus used until now in records management is still useful to manage information in environments under an increasing process where data is prevalent of this so-called datification, or however is set?
Yeah, thank you. And I'd like to also say thanks so much for inviting. Oh, hang on, I'm going to turn off the translation. Thank you so much for inviting us all from the ICA Forum on Professional Associations. I can't believe it's, I think, 5 years since I was there in person at the Association of Catalan Archivists Conference. It was one of the best conferences I've ever been to. And that's just on the social side, let alone the formal program. So it's a pleasure to be back. I just wish it could be in person next time.
Next time.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that this is a question that many of us in archives and record keeping are asking ourselves on an almost daily basis. Are our skills and our techniques still relevant in the data-rich world that we live in? And I think that the answer is very much yes. I think that we have a particular skill set that is quite unique. Nobody else in the information professionals world thinks about the capture and management of evidential information in its context like we do. And so it is that understanding of the need to capture particular bits of information in a particular context and linked to a business process that is a uniquely archival viewpoint. As my Australian colleague Chris Hurley would say, we are interested in documents, deeds, and doers. And you can transpose that concept into a data world without very much difficulty. And I do a lot of work in organizations that are managing very complex and large arrays of data. And I find one of the most useful ways to get in and understand what is happening is to take that simple model of who is involved, what is the business, and what is the evidence or the record that is needed at any particular point, whether it's a traditional process or a process in IT systems. So I think with that understanding, we bring a unique perspective. I think that where the gaps lie are around perhaps getting rid of the assumptions that come with physical record keeping, because many of those assumptions are not useful in a data environment. So, you know, thinking about record content and metadata in the sense that we need to make sure that they are protected and preserved at points in time and in context, and that is our role of managing that as a record as opposed to a physical thing. So overall, I think I'm very optimistic that we bring not only that kind of understanding, but also the over time understanding, which is very unique. Nobody else is so interested in the way that organizations, governments, business units change, the structures, the mergers, the demergers. We have a unique ability to track that landscape as well. And when you need to understand who is responsible for data, who controls data, who processes data, and that's language from, some of you will be familiar, the GDPR, you know, that's the kind of analysis that we are very used to doing in a record sense, but we now are doing it in a data world. So the summary is, yes, our processes are, and our understandings are incredibly useful. We just need to free our mind sometimes of the constraints of the physical and focus on the business and the information and the evidence.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Let's go now with Boface. It's the same question. What's your opinion about the traditional focus on records management and how we deal with the large amounts of data now, and do we need to change, or what's the attitude?
I first of all love to thank the Association for the Catalunya for giving us this kind of an opportunity. It's quite a privilege to be with my colleagues from the 50th year, and also have to thank Maria and everyone. Indeed, we are in a new era, and I find that our social life has been changed by this social data. And that one has really made us to rethink on the definition of the records management. We find that the records management definition hasn't changed, but the way we conceive the records management has totally changed. We now conceive the records management in terms of the digital atmosphere, the Facebook, the social media, and all the aspects. So we have to, as the professional, it's now a time that we have to rethink on ourselves. We have to re-engineer, we have to redefine, and we have to keep update with the emerging matter. This is quite an emerging aspect, and as a professional who is sort of passionate about the digital archiving, we really need to redefine what are we archiving, what are we documenting. You don't need to sit at the back and wait for records or wait for data, or just to look at the physical records as the e-records. We need to get out, we need to understand how are these data emerging. What is the what are the characteristics of this emerging data? Are you able to define them? Are you able to understand this data? What is their context? What are their the contextual aspects into such a way that as we move towards, we ensure that we retain them to we will retain that a form of the records. We are in a way that we have really not to go back to the traditional methods of the records keeping or even the archiving, but you have to go in a much in an advanced manner, because the world is coming small by the issue of the data. Right now, we can be someone from either Israeli, someone from Catalunya. Those are records and those are data. So indeed, I agree. Our world has changed, our ways of life have changed, and you as a professional, it's also high time we redefine, we change, and we adapt this kind of aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's go with Lavi. It's the same question.
Okay. Thank you for letting us join and participate in this conference. Really thrilled and excited for that. Regarding your question, I want to start with a report that was prepared recently about the amount or percentage of folders and that were depleted in the National Archive. And it seems that, and I'm talking about the physical one, even in that sense, in some ministries, there's hardly, the percentage is very low. In some ministries, it's higher. But there's no, still, at least in Israel, there's no a complete overall structure and program of how to deal with digital born records. So we still have a way to go. I mean, we're 25 years into the digital born and the record keeping management, and the world is obviously changing. We're transferring analog physical data into the digital, and we're creating. I think, like Stella and Cassie was saying before, there's no reason to be afraid, and it's more of an adventure. And we can obviously overcome it. Some of the problems are mostly technological. I mean, if every official creates his own data on a computer, obviously there should be a way to decide and to extract the needed records and not everything. So before it was done physically, today it is done digitally, or it should be done. I think that most of the record keeping in the digital world should be, the datification should be a technological issue rather than a theoretical. Obviously, there are a few theoretical differences as well. But like I said, the opportunities are much larger today, because before you had to come to the archive or to the library, whatever, in order to see the catalog, and today you can do it from wherever. In a way, it is much easier. Thank you.
Thank you, Lavi. And let's go with Bert to close this round.
Well, at last, thank you for organizing the Congress. I agree with Cassie, it is better to be in Barcelona, but we do with it. Next to that, you introduced me, I think, as the director of the University Archives of Amsterdam, and of course, but I'm not sure, but I'm the director of the Amsterdam City Archives, of course. And yeah, so I think it was a little mistake. But well, actually, I think the focus on what archives are and the archival functions they don't differ in a new world, but so like capture, appraisal, transferring data, access for researchers and all that kind of concepts will be still the same. But our problem is that we still don't have a system of automatic archiving. And that's where I plea for, actually. We know the term archiving by design. I think we still have to talk to companies like Microsoft and strive to have the archive function automatically. So then you can control your records and you can do the things we want them to do in respect of our own archives law. And the surroundings of information and data changed totally. All the paper concepts from the 20th century, we have to leave them behind and look how we can manage information and data in cooperation with CIOs within our municipalities and on central government level, and join companies to develop automatic archiving. If we can do that, we have a lot less to do, actually. So I think that's a point where we should focus on not only telling people what to do, but actually try to set goals and develop software. So that's the short reflection on your question, I think.
Thank you very much, Bert. I think I'll start reacting and change some of the order of the questions, and I think it's timely that reflection that you made, and I'll profit to move to a question related to this one, because it's a good segue. In fact, it's the last one of the ones that I had prepared, but I think it would be good now. So in international organizations, that it's my field of expertise, we've seen really a trend of organizations dropping enterprise content management based systems, so EDRMS, electronic document and records management systems, things like OpenText, Documentum, FileNet, and moving instead to SharePoint Online. Are you seeing the same trend in your countries? Or should we resist or rather join this trend? And I link this with your question, and I send it to you, Bert, but also perhaps with yesterday we had a very interesting presentation. There was a lady speaking about the creeping power of Silicon Valley, and that we should be wary and careful with that. And I know for a fact that for example, Microsoft has a very compelling package with artificial intelligence and products. What do you think about this one? We start with you, Bert, and then follow up with the rest.
Well, I think Stella told us, join new developments, don't resist them. So I agree. I agree with that. We have to cooperate, and they have an interest in integrating archival functions within their software. In the Netherlands now, we recently got a little political scandal and discussions about the way our prime minister didn't share information with parliament. And now we got several millions of euros extra to make the information management within the central government in order, and the National Archives are in that program. So I say, well, let's have a look at central government level, for instance. What do you have to do to keep your records well in this period? And then Cassie told us, and all the people told us, we have to have some points that must be realized. And you have to talk with the people who deliver the systems for us. In past times, we controlled everything, the paper boxes, the paper, the inked, everything we were in. And now we are dependent on companies, and we have to compel them and overtuigen. We have to compel them to build this archival function.
Thank you, Bert. Let's continue. So, following the round, it will be Stella. Stella, ¿qué opinas sobre este tema de, lo estáis viendo también en Uruguay? Antes los archiveros veníamos predicando este sistema monolítico de sistema de gestión de documentos y archivos donde la gente tenía que ir al sistema, y ahora viene Microsoft con SharePoint Online, muy popular con la gente. ¿Esto está pasando también allí y qué opinas al respecto?
Mira, sinceramente no tengo conocimiento de que aquí en Uruguay se esté generando esta práctica de SharePoint. Evidentemente, trabajar con SharePoint implica usar un software propietario, y en este caso de Microsoft, con todo lo que ello implica, ¿no? Incluso, ¿no?, estas recomendaciones de no usar este tipo de software a nivel de archivos estatales, pensando en que la información va a quedar en la nube y demás, ¿no? Comparto plenamente lo que mencionaba Bert, de que en todo caso tenemos que trabajar con las empresas, con los desarrolladores de software, sin perder de vista que son sistemas que estamos buscando sistemas de gestión de documentación, sistemas de gestión documental, que deben cumplir con los requisitos y los estándares archivísticos para que sean eficaces y permitan una correcta gestión, ¿no? Nuevamente, esto de salir de atrás del escritorio y tener un rol mucho más activo, proactivo, y demostrar nuestro conocimiento y la importancia de en este caso, las políticas, el seguimiento de los estándares archivísticos, en este caso para un programa de gestión, ¿no?
Gracias. Cassie, so yeah, the same question that we posed to Bert and Stella. Are you seeing this trend also in Australia? What's the situation there? What's your opinion about this?
Yes, I've seen, certainly I've just returned to Australia from almost 5 years working in the US, actually almost in Silicon Valley. I was in San Francisco, but not actually in Silicon Valley, just down the road. And I can report that, you know, Microsoft's Office 365 and SharePoint offering has gained enormous ground, and they have a huge footprint over business and government now. Also Google, frankly, Google's suite is, I've noticed, becoming a more popular tool for, especially for perhaps younger people, younger companies. I believe that this is pretty much unavoidable, that this is the landscape we are in. So the question then becomes, how can we achieve our goals, whether they be traditional records management or archival goals in this environment? And I think there are a few things we can do. Certainly we can be educated, and I worked for a large company in the US, and I spent a long time, well, it felt like a long time, doing the necessary training to be expert in the Microsoft Compliance Center. And it actually has a lot of very powerful tools for applying metadata to documentary sort of documents and other Office artifacts, wherever they might exist, and to have that metadata apply retention rules, access rules, and so forth. So you can achieve a lot of success, including with archival metadata, using the tools that Microsoft offers. I think that that is critical, because if you don't have the metadata in place in those unstructured environments, you know, you're lost. I think that there are a couple of other things we have to do. We have to remember to use our appraisal techniques to understand where critical records reside, and to not expend all of our energy in the Microsoft or Google environments, because often, depending on our business, there are critical records in the structured data environments. And so it's a balance. And sometimes we can get too caught up in dealing with document style records. So we should focus on where the key critical records reside, and not try to do everything. And then the other thing I would say is, yes, they are proprietary tools, but if we can at least push for what I call portability, so metadata and content is easily able to be exported, migrated, captured into different systems, then, you know, we are in a good position, especially with regard to archival transfer. So those are my thoughts, having been working in this Microsoft world for a while.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Cassie. Boniface, what's your opinion about this trend? Are you seeing the same thing in Kenya?
Definitely, yes. I'm seeing the same thing in Kenya. And I love to admit that Microsoft has become so dominant around the world. And it's become so addictive. You realize that you find that with Microsoft, they find a way that once they captured a customer, you really find it very hard to run away from them. So if you get when you start using any Microsoft application, you have to be very sure that if you run away from it, will be a little bit a difficult job. Yes, here in Kenya, it's really becoming a concern. And for me, from the records management professional, we need to sit down and take critique. We just accept and take critique, or we just reject. In my opinion, I find that Microsoft is not an efficient tool for records management, as it's just a document. It just a document management system. So I find that for most of the organizations say in Kenya, before they implement the SharePoint, they must have a program in place to have to program it so that it can be able to manage the records efficiently, which also again it comes with another baggage. I don't know if so to say, because I believe it will have been an efficient system. It should be a system that we as the records professionals, we can able to. And that one is the reason why in Africa you find that it's fine. We are trying to copy the world. We are trying to implement the SharePoint, but we can't really use it fully. We are like 10 years behind to utilize the SharePoint fully. And one of the reasons why I'm thinking the organizations are really advocating for the SharePoint, it's like it has a connector which it can connect various business applications. You can also be able to data mine, and also to be able to manage like the social media, which also the part of the records, and most of the organizations, also with the government agencies will have to be connected to the social media, the Twitter, or the Facebook. So that's why you find that most of that's the reason that I think most of the organizations, I see it as a best alternative. And when it comes to the server space, it's a cloud system. So you find that the most organization will find it as a shortcut, not so not to really purchase a server, because everything will be like cloud. So for you as an organization, you just have to work on your security mechanisms, the password strength, change of passwords, but for that storage to be safe for you. So it really acts as a shortcut for an efficient records management system, because again, if you have to do it, you have to have a strong ICT in place so that you can program, so that you can institute. So in my own opinion, yes, it's a great concern. Yes, it's growing. Yes, but we as professionals, are we criticizing it, or we are just using it without looking into great detail? And this now leads me to a bigger question. Do ICT control we records professionals, or we are supposed to control the ICT? Are we advancing in ICT? Are we developing our own records management and ability systems, or we are leaving these things to be developed by other people? Then as we purchase and we take customize as our needs. So we need to think very deep, and we really have to really access this point. That's my submission.
Thank you, Boface. Indeed, ICT departments are strong proponents of the system. Lavi, what's the situation in Israel? Are you seeing this same trend?
It is a trend using more SharePoint online tools and the opportunities that also Google allows us. And actually, I can say that it is very useful for daily work in order to collaborate and work as a team, whether you're working on we're using it, for example, in order to document artifacts. When one is taking a photo of the artifact, one is writing let's say archival or IDs, other is trying to find the historical information, and everyone can collaborate and everyone can see what the other one is doing, which is great. On the other hand, it can be problematic for a matter of preservation, long time preservation, and for a matter of security, like I said before, once it's online, who knows how much time it would be free. Maybe Google, Microsoft, once you stop paying them, they can cut your direct connection with the information. So this is one issue. It can, like with Cambridge Analytics, it can go to wrong hands or being used the wrong way. And again, there's a difference between using it as a day-to-day useful tool than as an archival tool. And I think most companies, also Microsoft, also Google, and also others, there are obviously other companies that use this kind of online software, that they have to do some more work combined with archivists in order to fit their tools for archival record management and preservation and security, etc., demands. That's it.
Thank you. Let's switch to the next question, and we'll start with Cassie. From the professional associations, what strategies is your association following faced with policies and models of information governance? It's an active policy. Are you concerned? It's this none of your business? So basically the question is, what must be the role of our professionals faced with information governance?
Thanks. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I've been watching the information governance space for some years, and to be honest, I always have to, when I'm asked about it, look it up and find out what it is, because I don't think that community has clearly articulated what the scope and the purpose of the world of information governance is, or perhaps it's not unified enough. I do understand, and I think that there are many benefits from bringing together a range of controls and processes that can help an organization to be compliant and to have business efficiency with all of its types of information. And I think that that's what information governance is aiming to be about. But certainly I've seen various attempts, for example, within the international standards world, to try to codify what information governance is. And it seems to always stumble on different parties in that conversation having different opinions. So I think from the Australian Society of Archivists point of view, we have a representative in that standards world, and we follow and try to contribute to those efforts. But it does, seem like it's got a little bit of a way to go in terms of a common understanding. Having said all that, I wanted to make another point about the language that we use to talk about what we do, because I think a lot of information governance articles and conversations sometimes are talking about record keeping, but because the word records for many people, certainly in English speaking communities, I can't speak for all around the world, but certainly in Australia, the United States, talking about records causes people to think you're talking about paper and talking about old-fashioned approaches. And it's unfortunate, because we know, those of us in this conference, that record keeping is a dynamic and technology agnostic enterprise. But the fact is that if you're talking to senior management, resource allocators, politicians, and the like, you have to adapt your language. And so we increasingly talk about information and data. My hope is that we can slip in some information about what we do that is unique, about information in context, about business information that is needed for compliance and memory purposes. And we can almost, and I'm going to paraphrase my colleague Barbara Reid, who talks about a record-keeping sensibility, and that this should be something that we bring into a broader conversation, even if we have to open the door by talking about information in a broad sense. So that was a little bit rambly, but certainly I think it's an area that we need to be part of and engaged in, and continue to present our perspective.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Cassie. Let's go with Boniface. What do you think about this question of information governance? It's our concern, or shouldn't it be? What's the opinion from your side, from your profession? Yeah.
It's a concern. It's a concern, really. And coming from this part of Africa, the information governance is quite an issue. And the governments of Africa, sometimes they try to gag the organizations from some information, and even to this information. In fact, like in my country, there's an act that was implemented to have freedom for information, which I believe goes well in hand with information governance. But as a professional, we are struggling to implement this. We are struggling to work with this because we find that we lack the relevant tools. We lack the relevant tools, the relevant framework that can go into this and can go and so that we can safeguard this. So according to me, it's a major concern. But again, we need to really maybe we can dig deep into it and see how we can reach it. But from my aspect, it's an issue.
Fine. Thank you very much. Let's go with Lavi. Are you seeing also this push for information governance in Israel?
Yeah. From the Association of Israeli Archivists standpoint, it's obviously an issue, and we are doing also training and conferences, and we are let's say active in our forum in this matter, either legal record management, even proper vocabulary that you are using, computing, and more. It should be noted that there is not yet let's say instruction booklet that summarizes everything that the association finds proper and correct in this context. Some of the information is we sometimes translate vocabulary or basic rules from English and share in our website. One aspect I want to expand a bit is the legal aspect. I mean, in Israel, well, I can imagine also in a few other world countries, there are documents or material that can be exposed to the public, and from either security, national security issues, is not is still kept closed to the general public, and we cooperate with organizations from the civilian sphere that try to make a public policy about it and to open more and more information. It's not we don't always succeed on this matter. Generally, we are the association in Israel is not I can say is not strong enough in order to change the way the government is treating its information, but we always keep on trying. That's in general.
Thank you, Lavi. And let's go with Bert. What's the attitude in the Netherlands related to information governance?
Well, our associations has 3 lines of focus, actually. The first is, like Lavi said, I think, make connection with the citizens, the users, make them to the central point because they have the right of access to information in the Netherlands. And because they have that right, we have to manage our information well, because otherwise it's a problem to get that right of access. Because otherwise we are technicians talking about record keeping, information management and all that kind of thing. So make this relevant connection with society. The second one is that we plea for an information law which all the interests of information are integrated. We don't succeed in that point because we just have a new archives law and all the ministers don't want to have a new information law. But then we say, all right, then the first phase must be to have an integrated information policy in the Netherlands where information security, GDPR, archiving and access of information are integrated, because now we have different laws, and for the citizens it's very difficult to know their rights and what is going on, all the things. So that's a lobby to the government. And the third one for the professionals, that is that we make a program of long life learning in which we want to integrate information management and archival studies, like Cassie said, use other language, use information instead of records or documents or that kind of things, but also integrate parts of information management or architectural things in your competencies and knowledge as an archivist. So that's the most important one for the professionals, I think, because we noticed in the Netherlands, we have a lot of old archivists. They have once managed together archival studies, but then later on we don't do very much on education. So now we are negotiating with universities and other parties who are in the educational domain on information to make a program in which you are more or less compelled, like a register archivist, more or less compelled to do educational things every year. So that's are the 3 lines of focus of our association.
Thank you, Bert. Let's start now with a different question for Boface. Do you see lasting consequences for our profession from the COVID pandemic? What has been the reaction, if any, from archivists and records managers in Kenya? Has there been a reaction, a concern about this?
Definitely, yes. The COVID-19 pandemic has shaped the profession. Records management, it's not the way it was before the COVID pandemic. And if we go to the first question, I talked about the identification, it would be relative without the COVID. So I know we may talk about the negatives of the COVID, but from the professional perspective, I think the COVID has contributed so much to reshaping records and records management profession. Right now, like now from Kenya, it's been hit, but not so much. But you find that most people are working from home, and you find that most of our systems are not really automated. So you realize that those that are not able to work from home are losing their opportunities. And this now brings the questions. Are you able to meet your system as a records professional? Are you able to work from home, or must be such a person who must be in the office? So at least the people have realized the power of the technology, the power to automate, the power to invent, and the power to change the way we handle other things. So yes, there's a lasting consequence, and this is going along with the technology. We need to find ways of automating our systems so that you can work remotely in such a way that you can be from home, but you serve. Not that you must be a person who must be in the office to work. So it leads us to how to move from the traditional ways of practicing to modern way of practicing, but in the courtesy of the COVID pandemic. So yes, it has.
Thank you very much. Lavi, Israel has been one of the leading countries in really dealing with COVID. A lot of the world is looking your way on how you have been managing the pandemic. Other consequences for our profession, impacts for our profession.
Yes, first I'm glad to hear it from the outside. We hear it in our newspaper and in the television magazine, but it's good to find out it's real. Well,
it's not fake news.
yeah, exactly. This is what I mean. We don't believe, as you know, Bert, everything the government says. So first, when the corona pandemic started, everything here was closed, including archives, and many archivists were sent home. In some cases, like my case, we kept on working from home. So this is the first thing. Actually, already in April and May, we conducted a survey amongst the archivists of the association to find out what the situation is, and we found out in most cases people kept on working either from home, some cases kept on going to the offices, but in some cases they were left home for a long time. This is one thing. After a period of adjustment and getting to see what's going on, we transformed everything into the virtual world. Zoom was in Israel anyway, Zoom was the chosen software. And since about July, we conducted all of our conferences by Zoom. And actually it has a positive influence, because before people had to go from all over the country into either Tel Aviv or some other city. And in that way, since it was in Zoom, we had sometimes even double or triple amount of participants in the conferences. And actually now, like this conference that I'm now joining in Barcelona, we had the first international session with the archivists from the States and from England in December. Yeah, we also called the association partners, I mean the archivists, to follow up what is done in the parent organization, and to in the Corona time itself, because we were afraid that there was a lot of mess like all over the world, and even this mess should be documented. So it was even more important than in regular days to see what's the government or what is done in the organization management, what their decisions were, and how they kept on, how did they dealt with the influence of the pandemic in day-to-day, in the decision and whatever. Generally, can say that since February, we're kind of going out of the pandemic and things are going back to regular. And I hope in July we will already have a conference alive. You are welcome. Thank you.
Looking forward to that. Really looking forward to that. Bert, what's the situation in the Netherlands? Do you see impacts for our profession?
Yeah, I see impact. In the Netherlands, we have a lockdown from March last year with several inter periods where we were open for public again. So we are now at this moment closed for the public, and I hope within a few weeks we can be open again. But what we already did, but what we said even more focus on was the digitization and the public services digital. So we have our scanning on demand. We strengthened that. We created a chat instead of phone. We have a good email services. And I think we can close our reading room within a few years. We don't do it yet because our customers are used to it and they want to come to us. But actually we can do everything in scanning on demand except for some specialties, I think. So now I always say in 2025, when the city of Amsterdam exists 750 years, we will close our reading room and change it for concentration rooms. So I think indeed on the service level, it means a lot for archives.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to that 2025. Yeah, it would be quite a feat. Stella, ¿cuál ha sido la situación en Uruguay? Que por lo poco que sé que también es uno de los países que dentro de la situación en América Latina ha controlado bien la pandemia relativamente, con una buena vacunación. ¿Y cuál es la situación actualmente para los profesionales? ¿Hay impactos para nosotros? ¿Hay consecuencias?
Bueno, yo creo que sí, que tendremos consecuencias duraderas en nuestra profesión y en la forma de relacionarnos también con nuestros usuarios, ¿no? Formas que llegaron o se acentuaron con la pandemia y que van a perdurar en mayor o menor medida. La gestión remota de la información, por ejemplo, esto del teletrabajo, es algo que que nos ha tomado por sorpresa a todos, pero que creo que en algunos casos no se creía posible, pero ahora se ha demostrado de que sí es posible, con una infraestructura y políticas, sobre todo de seguridad, acordes, ¿no? Porque estamos manejando la información de nuestras instituciones a través de los sistemas informáticos. Y por otro lado, el propio usuario de los archivos en este momento está demandando un servicio diferente, como recién mencionaba Bert, y justamente esa demanda en muchos casos seguramente va a ser persistente, ¿no? Sobre todo en esto de la virtualidad, para muchos investigadores es mucho más sencillo y factible el hacer consultas remotas por muchas razones, y creo que en esa medida se nos va a demandar más todavía el que de que nuestros archivos estén disponibles en línea, ¿no? Y ahí ya tenemos que empezar a pensar en otras variables, como por ejemplo algo que hemos estado discutiendo estos días en la asociación, el tema, por ejemplo, del derecho de autor, ¿sí? Y cuánto eso influye en esto de disponibilizar toda la información y todos los documentos en la web, ¿sí? Todos nuevos desafíos tienen sus pros y sus contras, y todo tenemos que estar analizando y viendo las diferentes variables que influyen en ello, ¿no?
Gracias, Stella. Cassie, Australia is also one of the reference, I think, internationally, because you've been also successful to finally control the pandemic. But are there consequences for our profession?
Yeah, look, I would echo everything that my fellow panelists have said. All of those observations are true in Australia. I think it's been quite inspiring, actually, to see how change can be made rapidly, profound change, and that we can learn that we can have new models of working. And I think some of the changes will mean there is greater equity of access to archival resources, that there used to be perceptions about archives that they were kind of in a room somewhere that you had to go to, and so it's exciting that this pandemic has accelerated in some ways the availability of archival material online. So I would agree with all of those things. I think from my perspective here in Australia, some of the interesting trends that will have an impact on both record keeping and the archival mission are the, again, accelerated uptake of cloud. So organizations are abandoning on-premises technologies, storage, software, everything. It's all going to the cloud. So that has a number of implications that we've already referenced in this talk. And the other observation, I think, from our perspective, we have a quite successful contact tracing program here in Australia, whereby we use a code to register at every venue we attend, whether it be a cafe or a theatre or a swimming pool. And the acceptance by the public of the collection of their personal information at that scale has been very interesting. And of course, there's a benefit, a public health benefit, but it was an interesting phenomenon to see how ready people were to give that degree of personal information to government. And so I think there's some lessons there around, and I know we may not have enough time to get into the privacy question, but there's, as someone who's a privacy person as well as an archivist and a record keeper, I thought that was very interesting.
Thank you very much. Yeah, indeed, we have like 5 minutes left. I don't know if we have enough time for the final question that we had on GDPR and privacy. That is also yet another issue that we are dealing with. Perhaps quickly, if we can go quickly and you can name like a priority that you see in all this kind of convoluted situation. What should be our priority? Because we have many fronts open, and I think it's Lavi's turn to start. Sorry to drop this unexpected one on you, but it's kind of a quick one. Whatever comes to your mind. What should be our professional priority? But just one. that's the trick.
Generally, GDPR, and it is connected to what Cassie just said about giving the information to the government, giving or taken by the government. So it is an issue, and in Israel we are now trying to give some more emphasis it, because it kind of crashes with the Israeli archival law in one sense. I mean, from one side, you want to share as much as possible information, and the GDPR in a way kind of stops many of the information you could have released before. So we're kind of trying to find the right way in order to keep on exposing information, documents, etc., but keeping in terms with the new laws of the GDPR.
Sorry, that was a useful reflection. I was kind of changing the last question at the last minute, so I apologize for that. We have really just a brief moment. If you could name one priority, that's for Bert, and we will continue. Among all these things that we have named or others, what would be one priority if you had to choose?
Right to access. GDPR may not threaten the right to access, and now we are fighting in the Netherlands to balance those two things, and we are from a right to access, of course.
Thank you. Estela, ¿cuál sería la prioridad entre todas estas cosas que tenemos que hacer? Tantas cosas por hacer y tan poco tiempo.
Podría destacar, para no repetir también, ¿no?, el desafío que impone el garantizar el correcto tratamiento y resguardo de esos datos personales como responsables de la gestión documental de las instituciones.
Gracias. Gracias. Cassie, if you had to select one priority, and I know it's a wicked question on my side.
That's okay. I think I'm going to select education and reform of the educational standards for young records and archives professionals. I think long overdue.
Excellent. Boface,
would be the
priority.
I think for this, I'll also support Cassie. I'll go with what Cassie has said. We need to do an education for the young archives and the professionals, and also we also need high level of advocacy on this. Yeah.
Thank you. And Lavi, if you had to select one priority among everything that we have to do, all the things that you...
I think to improve our archival facilities to the public.
Fine.
They're not good enough.
Very good. Well, sorry, there's no more time. I think it's been a terrific panel, and I really want to thank you all for your availability, for your answers. I think there's really a lot of important things that have been shared. So thanking you all for your availability, we close this session. Thank you very much.
Facilita el proceso de gestión documental y archivo al resto de herramientas de la organización. Podrás gestionar las necesidades de cualquier tipo de archivo, desde el archivo físico clásico hasta el electrónico o híbrido si lo necesitas. Se adapta a cualquier política de gestión documental, pudiendo configurar tanto metadatos de normativas y estándares de descripción archivística existentes como metadatos propios. Comenzaremos con la definición de las fases de archivo que necesitemos gestionar, estableciendo por cada una de ellas los posibles depósitos, pudiendo ser físicos o electrónicos. Los depósitos físicos son completamente personalizables, tanto en niveles de almacenaje como en unidades de instalación. Define los diferentes fondos documentales, configurando cuadros de clasificación, describiendo las diferentes series documentales y estableciendo sus correspondientes tablas de valoración. Podrás localizar y acceder a las series documentales navegando de forma gráfica a través de una estructura en árbol o utilizando el buscador a partir de cualquiera de sus descriptores. Para describir la documentación, podrás definir esquemas de metadatos de cada entidad y sus relaciones, personalizando los formularios de introducción o búsqueda de información, así como su presentación al recuperarla. Podrás describir las actividades y asociarlas a series del cuadro de clasificación, que pueden tener a su vez asociadas las regulaciones, disposiciones o normativas que aportarán otro nivel de descripción al expediente, cuya información será producida y custodiada por diferentes tipos de agentes. Una vez adaptado a la política de gestión documental, el sistema recibe la documentación desde las diferentes herramientas para gestionar su ciclo de vida. En la fase de captura, los expedientes y documentos ingresan en el sistema. A partir de este momento, se van vinculando los diferentes agentes que intervienen. Se le asociarán identificadores únicos y una primera descripción mínima. Y dado que los expedientes son el reflejo de un procedimiento o actividad, GEDE permite su clasificación automática en la serie documental. Conforme avanza la tramitación en el resto de herramientas para dar respuesta a diferentes actuaciones administrativas, se incorpora nueva documentación, se actualizan los metadatos o se vinculan nuevos agentes. Vamos completando así la descripción del expediente a lo largo de las diferentes fases. A partir de la información almacenada en el sistema de gestión documental y archivo, podrás localizar fácilmente la documentación mediante diferentes opciones de búsqueda. Sencilla, por un término relativo a cualquier descriptor, o incluso búsquedas más complejas, combinando filtros de diferentes campos o incluso de diferentes entidades relacionadas. Tras lanzar la búsqueda, recibirás un listado con los recursos que cumplen los criterios establecidos, permitiendo acceder al detalle de cualquiera de ellos. Si es una búsqueda frecuente, recuerda guardarla con los filtros preestablecidos para relanzarla en futuras ocasiones de forma rápida. Finalizada la tramitación del expediente, se habrá llegado a su versión definitiva. Las diferentes herramientas ya pueden solicitar al sistema el cierre del mismo, produciéndose el foliado y la generación del índice electrónico. A partir de las tablas de valoración, tendrás la posibilidad de configurar las transferencias al archivo para su conservación definitiva, así como de seleccionar o eliminar tanto el expediente físico como el electrónico. Para todos estos procesos dispones de múltiples asistentes donde generar las relaciones de entrega de transferencia, propuestas de eliminación o muestreo de los expedientes, entre otras. Por otro lado, si te preocupan los problemas de obsolescencia digital, ten en cuenta que el sistema contempla procesos de transformación de formatos para evitarla, garantizando su accesibilidad a largo plazo. Y esto no es todo. A partir de la información almacenada podrás disponer de un módulo de difusión web de las colecciones de archivo, generar estadísticas y cuadros de mando, gestionar la cartera de servicios, controlar el espacio de los depósitos físicos, consultar el calendario de retención o integrar herramientas de vocabularios controlados. Y siempre con la ventaja de utilizar software de fuentes abiertas. ¿Quieres saber más? Hablemos. ¿Estás cansada?
Todos estamos cansados de ver estas situaciones de pobreza, hambre, cambio climático y no obtener respuesta. El planeta está agotado y hay que pasar a la acción. La Agenda 2030 nace para afrontar esta complejidad y disponer de un marco para actuar todos juntos a partir de unos objetivos comunes. T-Systems ha desarrollado un sistema de indicadores que ayuda a las administraciones locales a cumplir con sus compromisos de sostenibilidad de la Agenda 2030, alineados con el Plan de Acción Municipal. Esta iniciativa requiere integrar gran cantidad de datos, establecer unos indicadores medibles y hacer que esta información sea útil, transparente y abierta a toda la ciudadanía. Esta herramienta permite medir datos sobre biodiversidad, economía e innovación, movilidad, eficiencia energética, servicios sociales y sanitarios municipales. Este es el primer grano de arena para que, con la participación de todos, miremos hacia el futuro en positivo y la Agenda 2030 se abra camino en los ayuntamientos españoles. Caminamos hacia la sostenibilidad. ¿Y tú?
El servei de cita prèvia de la teva administració permet a qualsevol persona ser atesa amb la màxima seguretat, evitant esperes, cues i desplaçaments. Reserva cita en qualsevol moment i lloc des de qualsevol dispositiu connectat a internet per a formular sol·licituds, consultar informació o aclarir qüestions relacionades amb un tràmit ja iniciat. Tot això seguint uns senzills passos. Accedeixi a l'apartat de cita prèvia de la seu electrònica. Seleccioni el servei i agenda en el qual desitja sol·licitar cita. Triï el dia i hora de la cita entre les que estiguin disponibles. T'ofereix la possibilitat de reservar cita per ser atès presencialment per telèfon mitjançant una trucada que rebrà de la seva administració o a través del nou servei d'atenció per videoconferència. Tan aviat com es confirma la cita, s'envia un missatge per correu electrònic amb els detalls d'aquesta. El dia de la cita podràs presentar-te a l'oficina d'atenció al públic, rebre una trucada telefònica o connectar-te per videoconferència amb el servei sol·licitat a l'hora acordada. Un servei de cita prèvia adaptat als nous temps per acostar-te a la teva administració i garantir-te la màxima disponibilitat, seguretat i accessibilitat possible.
Per una gestió senzilla de tots els documents i expedients tramitats per l'entitat, és necessari aplicar un model simple que permeti gestionar el cicle de vida dels documents. Les plataformes d'administració electrònica de Bert de Vries inclouen un model de gestió documental i arxivística que garanteix el correcte tractament i conservació de tots els documents gestionats per l'entitat. Tant els documents que es capturen a través del registre electrònic de documents i de la seu electrònica de l'entitat, com els que generen el gestor d'expedients i documents, resultat de l'activitat de l'entitat, s'emmagatzemen de forma centralitzada i segura al repositori documental de la plataforma d'administració electrònica, acompanyats de les metadades de preservació i gestió, classificats segons el quadre de classificació documental de l'entitat. Existeixen altres sistemes productors de documents i expedients que emmagatzemen tots els documents que produeixen el repositori documental centralitzat, inclòs a la plataforma d'administració electrònica. Els calendaris de transferència configurats per l'entitat al mòdul d'arxivística de la plataforma d'administració electrònica permeten automatitzar la transferència dels expedients i documents a la plataforma de custòdia i preservació digital utilitzada per l'entitat. Els expedients transferits són conservats a la plataforma de preservació digital fins al moment de la seva destrucció o conservació permanent. Gestiona simple i eficaçment tots els documents i expedients de la teva entitat amb les plataformes d'administració electrònica de Bert de Vries i els seus mòduls d'arxivística.